All right, everybody. Wait another few seconds. Get it going. I don't want to leave you hanging too long. All right, everybody. It looks like it is just 1 o'clock now, so I'm just going to do a quick little introduction. We'll get right into our workshop. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Erin Rounds, the Angie Secretary. Also with me today are two of Angie's board members, Radhika and Laura. They'll be helping with the questions in the chat and anything else we need along the way. We're excited that you're here for today's workshop, Oak to Acorn, as part of Angie's 37th Annual Winter Conference. As a special thank you to our conference sponsors, PSEG, New Jersey Natural Gas, and our anonymous donor who is a friend of Science and Environmental Education New Jersey, and to BASF and the Grounds for Sculpture for supporting our field experience. Also, we're placing a link to the YouTube channel in the chat room, where you can see all of the recorded content from past conferences, forums, and other sponsored events. We hope you subscribe to Angie's YouTube channel. And in the coming weeks, you'll also be seeing any of the workshops that you missed from this conference. Just a reminder for the session, we ask that everyone keep themselves on mute throughout the presentation. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. There will also be time for live questions toward the end of the presentation, in which you can raise your hand or use the raising hand icon, or let us know by coming off mute. So we have with us today Jen Karshik and Christine Thompson from Unity Charter School as our presenters. During the session, we will show you how we are helping replenish our local tree canopy through lessons in the classroom, lessons in the greater community, partnership with our local Shade Tree Commission, and our school's Oak Nursery. Jennifer and Christine, go ahead and introduce yourselves and we can get started. Thank you.
Thanks, Erin. So we're going to be sharing our screen momentarily. We do have a slideshow. Erin, are you able to put the slideshow link in the chat, or would you care for one of us to do that?
Yeah, I can put that in for you.
Thank you. So the slideshow that we're using today does have interactive links in it. We're not going to click on them all during our presentation, but it's a good resource for you to have in the future if you want to use this practice with students that you work with or just at home. So my name is Jen, and this is Christine. And here comes our presentation. So Acorn to Oak, it's just a program that we put together teaching about planting seeds can make for a better New Jersey.
Hi, my name is Christine Thompson. I'm a third grade teacher here at Unity. So I've been teaching at Charters for the past 7 years, and I really enjoy doing the cross-curricular units here at Unity as well. So tying our subjects all throughout the different disciplines that we're using.
And my name is Jennifer Karsich. I've been teaching for over 25 years in New Jersey. I've taught everything K through 8, general education, special education, public schools, charter schools, independent schools, and currently I'm the sustainability coordinator and supervisor of curriculum at Unity Charter School. I'm also on the New Jersey Department of Education's Gifted and Talented Subcommittee, and last year I was an Angie Excellence in Environmental Education awardee. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about our school first and how we're able to take on different projects like this. Next slide, did it go? No, it didn't switch on mine yet. So at Unity Charter School, we are a charter school that brings in students from over 40 different sending communities. That means we're a great place to be like a laboratory to try different things. Our population at Unity reflects the population of New Jersey. So we have a little bit of everybody. And different than most charter schools, we don't have programming from outside agencies like they do in more inner city charter schools. We're able to develop our own curriculum and change it as needed to suit the needs of our students. So that's why we were able to bring in the Acorn to Oak program so quickly and utilize it with our students. And you can see Unity Charter School is located right in the center of Morris County in Morris Township, New Jersey. Our program worked with different agencies, or is working with different agencies in both Morristown and Morris Township. Erin, which slide are you seeing right now? I'm on a delay, I think.
I'm seeing the one that says more than 40 sending districts.
No, I can't hear you.
Switch now.
Thumbs up if it says goals.
Yep, it says our goals now.
I can't hear her at all. Hang on 1 second. Okay, can you
are you guys able to see our slide that says our goals?
We can see it, but it's squished.
Great. Thank you. We were having a delay on our end, but now we're good. Okay,
Very good. Yep.
Goals for the workshop today are to educate students of the benefits of oak trees and their life cycle, and to increase the tree canopy in our great state of New Jersey. So why oak trees? This is pretty neat. This someone actually brought this to me from the outside community. A community member said, you know, what about all these great oak trees that we have and all these acorns? They had read this fantastic article in the New York Times, which is attached here, that you can read at home, about the importance of oak trees. And the discussion was because here, especially in Morristown and Morris Township, we are losing a drastic amount of ash trees from the emerald ash borer. And we were trying to think of ways that we could replace these trees. So a gentleman in our town named Mark Jorfy, who happens to be the Morris Township mayor now, brought this idea forward to me about how could we get more oak trees into the neighborhood. And I said, you know, we have tremendous amount of oak trees on campus and the kids love playing with acorns. So we talked about what we could do. And that's how our Acorn to Oak project came to be. Oak trees themselves support more life forms than any other tree in North America. And it's shocking to know that they, oak trees house 897 different caterpillar species. And caterpillars are a great feeder food for many different birds, many different creatures. So oak trees not only are long-lived, help with soil erosion, but they help diversify our animal population here in our great state of New Jersey. And so we thought that it was critical that we start replacing our tree canopy with more oak trees in particular. Next slide. And so, of course, when we started this project, we started looking at the state standards and seeing different, there's next generation science standards. Particularly, these are for third grade that we put up because that's the launch program that we did was in Christine's class. So there's science and reading standards woven in. But as Christine and I developed the program further and we turned it into a full integrated unit, we'll show you where it integrates into math and other social studies as well. So we asked the students, why are acorns important? And we're very big on using interactive notebooks here at school. So the students discussed the question and wrote down everything that they knew about acorns and why they were important. And the kids had some really great ideas, and it let us know what learning had already taken place just through life itself and their little inquiry that they do out at recess with all the acorns. And then we took them outside to find the acorns and then talk further about what we would do with these acorns and what actually happens with an acorn. Next slide. So then in the classroom, once they went on their acorn hunt and came back with a bunch of different acorns, we're big on letting students learn in ways that are best for them. So instead of us telling them why acorns were important and what they turn into, because some students didn't even know what acorns turned into, some did, we gave them different methods to find information. And again, this was with a third grade class. So these different icons on the screen where it says acorns in blue, that's a video. Students got to do this as a choice board model where they chose how they wanted to learn about acorns. They could watch the video all about acorns and the life cycle of oak trees. We also pulled information, articles from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, articles from there. And then we also had a podcast that kind of tied in. The kids at the time were when we launched this, we had spotted lanternflies everywhere. And we had been discussing about those as well. So we pulled up a podcast and talked about how spotted lanternflies are impacting trees in our area. And so students worked in cooperative groups to pull information together through this little mini research that they did about acorns. And then we talked about, okay, so what can we do with that information now? And you.
Okay. So for science, we decided to talk about the life cycle of the tree, like Jen mentioned, so that it starts at the acorn and then grows, and how it's going to take quite a while to become the sapling and then into the full-grown tree. We tied it into the needs of all living things. Then we also went into how are seeds even dispersed. The students walked around, we collected acorns, we found them all over the school campus. So how did they get from over at those trees all the way over to the other side? Comparing the different trees and what their seeds look like to the different leaves, to how they grow in the different habitats, the animal habitats and the connection of the all living things, how the environment affects the traits. We're doing a little bit of genetics with that as well. And to test their viability, you put them in water and see if they sink or float. So we also can talk about our density in there as well. These are all the different state standards that go into it for science. So as you can see, there's different ways that you can take it from, here's a kindergarten one, all the way up to the third grade standards that we use. So they can just observe them, take a few notes about that in the lower grades, and then all the way up to using the explanation that traits can be influenced by the environment. So why are some of the acorns different colors, different shapes, different sizes? For social studies in third grade, we're working a lot on maps. So we created a map of where the oak tree is found, specifically in New Jersey, creating a campus map of where our oak trees are on campus, how human activity has impacted the physical environment. And it's also New Jersey state symbols is one of our projects, our units. So the oak tree being one of New Jersey's symbols. For Eli, there's so many different activities that we can incorporate the oak tree in. Reading and writing informational stories, creating poems and narrative stories about the trees, reading them, writing persuasive essays to encourage people to plant more trees, which our students will actually be doing coming up to try and convince them to let us plant more trees in Morristown. Sequencing of the different events that happen throughout the plant's life. They could do the how-to writing about planting the tree. So again, that can go from kindergarten all the way up to third grade. Here's just a variety of different books on the oak tree. So there's some that are informational. There's also a lot of narrative as well, so it can go into a lot of different units. Here's just an example of what our students did. Here's the labeling to make sure each part, and then sentences about how they are helping the acorns. Or I'm sorry, why the acorns are important. For math, we tied it into math by organizing our planter beds using arrays. We were also talking about multiplication division. So we had so many acorns. How many can we plant in each? How many rows do we need? You could also do the probability of the viable acorns. For the lower grades, you could do addition and subtraction word problems involving the acorns. They could sort them into sizes and different activities like that to meet all the different ages as well.
Can I pause you 1 second? With math as well, we also did this same project up with our 6th grade class, and our 8th grade class is doing some work with it as well. And I just saw in the one of the advanced math classes, they were using taking pictures of themselves next to the oak trees because there was no way to really measure them. So they were using a formula based on their own height and being able to calculate how tall the oak trees are on campus. I thought that was a great extension for middle school as well.
So then you can also tie it into art. So they can do some recycled materials here to create some projects, as well as writing a poem or different facts that they learned about the acorn, of course, leaf rubbings as well.
And here we can see the different output students are having during this project. As you can tell, we started in the beginning of the year, right? When we come in, and that's generally when the acorns are falling. And it was a really exciting time. And for years, our students have done a lot of work with acorns, using them as natural counting tools. They use them actually for different things. For letter formation, they actually use them as tools to write words for their dictation. We've done things where we weigh the acorns, how heavy is your shoe? How many acorns heavy is your shoe? Those kinds of things we've done with them. But we've never done an intensive year-long study like we're doing now. And to have the impact that we're trying to have with the greater community with our acorns and oak trees now. So everything that Christine said has happened this year. They have planted all of their acorns in our little garden beds. Each learning group has 1 or 2 garden beds. We do a production garden here at Unity where we grow our own fruits and vegetables and we eat them for lunch. So we've given up one of them that was an herb garden in the past, and now it's just the oak nursery garden. So with any luck, we will have some sprouts coming up this spring. But if not, that's a lesson in itself, and the kids will research why. Were the acorns all dug up and eaten by the squirrels? Did they rot? Did we do some, what could be wrong? Do we not have the right kind of soil? So this is an ongoing research piece as well. So here's what in Christine's class, a typical the 3rd grade notebook from the original lesson would be, and how they had the essential question. They talked about what they thought acorns could do or why they're important. And then under drawing, they wrote more as they learned more. Next to it is the work in a 6th grade classroom that they were doing. This is a product that one 6th grader created after they did the initial lesson of why do we want to work with acorns? What do they provide to New Jersey? What do they provide to our community? And then they did just a little bit of research. So you can see the 2 different levels of output that we're expecting from our students. So it's not just a 1 grade unit. This can, as Christine was explaining, it can go K through 8. I know for this workshop, we're focused on K through 5, but we are also working in the middle school level with this program. Especially through, like I was saying, with our math and probability and using different formulas to calculate height with the trees. So we don't want to just keep the information to ourselves at school. Our students are very good at advocating for things that they believe in. And that's part of what we do at our school. So we have already done one outreach program this fall because we had a lot of acorns. The kids were excited to collect. So we did go to the fall festival on the green, and you can see a picture there where there's a bucket full of acorns. I had five-gallon buckets full of acorns that we brought with us. And as people went by, we said to them, hey, would you like a baby tree? And we taught them all about the importance of replanting trees in our neighborhoods and the impacts of the emerald ash borer taking down a lot of ash trees, and the impacts even of things of Superstorm Sandy here at our school. We were very impacted years ago by that. We lost an entire field of trees. So the students that are older do remember that happening, our middle school students, and how it looked before Sandy and how it looks now after Sandy, and what we personally can do that costs us nothing to have more trees there. So this is the part that I wanted to have a little interactive that Christine and I talked about that we've done with students and we did at this outreach. We have something like this. It's called a pot maker. There's a link at the slideshow where you can purchase one of these. We use these all the time with our students. If you don't have one of these, that's okay. You probably have a mug, and you probably have a can, maybe a can of soup, can of beans, a can that fits right in the mug. The closer the fit, the better. So if you need a moment to go ahead and get those, and some newspaper would be great, because we're going to teach you how to make the paper pots that we made for this outreach. We also make these pots for anytime we do any growing of tomatoes or any kind of gardening that we do, because we don't believe in purchasing more things. We believe in reuse. So if you don't have one of these for your school, or 2 or 3 or 4, this is a great way for students to build their occupational therapy or build their fine motor skills through some occupational therapy in class without even thinking of it as occupational therapy, because this is going to require them to do some pressure. So I will show you 2 different ways to make the paper pots. One using the actual pot maker and one using a mug and your can of soup. Okay, absolutely. So you also would need your paper. For a sheet of newspaper, I cut it into thirds. That's about the right size for what we're doing. So I will set this up. How's that, Christine? Good? Okay. So first I'll show you with the paper pot maker. It has a great little indent here that fits in here that puts it together. I have done this with my green team for many, many, many years. Your kindergartners will need a little more assistance, but they can do it also. And all you need to do, and middle school can do this absolutely no problem. You're going to put the paper pot maker so that the lip matches the top of the paper, and then you just roll it on to it. No glue, no staples. Sometimes there's videos for these and they show you to tape it, but tape doesn't decompose, so we don't tape it. And then just like you would do with a birthday present, you tuck, 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 tuck. So it looks like this. It's okay if this sticks out. Then you place it on the bottom. And now this is where the muscles come in. You just spin, spin, spin. Spin it back and forth. And it's just making some creases in the folds and holding it together. Ultimately, at our outreach, these just went home. So the families held them in their hand. But usually in the classroom, we put them on a dish because obviously they're not watertight. And we plant our seeds. There you go. And then you have a nice little pot that decomposes when you plant it in the garden. So you can start your acorns this way, where you fill it with soil, put your acorn in, water it, and then you put it in the garden bed, or you can leave it inside on a dish for a little while. Now I'll show you how to do it with, it's the exact same method from this with this. You're going to get a slightly larger pot. So and this would be your inside. This would be the piece that you're going to fit it into. So for the can, I do it about halfway, so you still have a good amount at the bottom. the exact same thing that you were doing with the pot maker. You're going to roll it over. Like so. You want to make sure you have enough at the end. You can just slide your can out, tuck it in like you would with a birthday present. And what you do want to make sure, though, is that the ends close. You don't want an opening in the bottom because your soil will come right out. If it's not meeting each other, pull the can out a little bit because then you'll have more paper to push down. Just like that. Now you're going to take your mug, and put it in the mug, and you're going to do the exact same thing that I did with the pot holder. You're just going to spin and push. Now it doesn't have that neat little groove like the other one does. So this one might take a little bit more spinning and pushing to stay together. And there you go. So we have two different sizes. They do the exact same job, where you would just fill them with soil, put in your acorn, water it, and then again, they would be on a dish if you want to grow them inside. You can grow them inside, and that's neat. You can see the sprouts that way. Or you can, or once they get going, you can plant them outside, or you can plant the whole thing outside. In our outreach, that's what we told people to do, that they can actually take the whole thing with the soil and this acorn. This was just a vessel for them to take it home. But we find these better than even buying those plastic sprouting kits and things like that. That's we just find them wasteful. And this is really easy. Instead of trying to dig out your little sapling and trying to transplant it, and you just transplant the whole thing. So that was our little make and take. So if you've learned nothing, you've learned how to make a paper pot with a soup can and a mug and a piece of newspaper. And then we can share a little bit more of what we did with, or that we're continuing to do with this project. So if you want to try to share screen, thank you. Okay, so what have we done up to now? So it's January. We just started this year. We've already planted our acorns in our garden bed, and fingers crossed, we're going to have them grow. We did send students home with acorn also, and they had a plethora of ideas of what they were going to be doing with them. And we sent home resources. I think it might be in the next slide, resources about what they can do with the acorns at home so that they could successfully grow them in their own home. But currently, the big news with our students is they are now working on persuasive writing, which if you're an educator, you know that that's a big piece of the New Jersey state standards. So we have a core team of Acorn experts in third grade that are creating a speech and creating a presentation for the Morristown Shade Tree Commission to explain our project, because our trees aren't just for our campus. We're going to have way too many to put just on our campus. We do a lot of walking field trips. So during our walking field trips here in town, we've noticed areas that could use more trees, or where trees have had to come down to the emerald ash borer because of storms. We thought it'd be great if we could be a little like Johnny Appleseed-ish and take our saplings with us when we do our walking field trips and plant some of our oak trees along the way. The Shade Tree Commission in Morristown is open to listening to our idea. And if hopefully if all goes well and they grant us permission, anytime we do our walking field trip, we would speak with them about what route we're going, and we would work with them to see where we could plant our saplings in a place that would be safe, not get mowed over, things like that. So that this should be a project that is going to be instrumental in helping where our school is, the greater community, and it can be the whole lifespan of our school, or I should say at least the lifespan of our oak trees on campus. So this should have a great impact year after year. We're also then, since we do a lot of walking field trips, kindergarten through 8th grade, our grand plan is that if they plant them in kindergarten, each time they walk past them again on another field trip, they'll be able to do a quick mini lesson on how tall is the tree, what do I see in the tree now. So by the time they're in 8th grade, hopefully each class will have at least one tree that was successful in our planting in the greater community. And then even later in life, as they grow up, hopefully our students will be able to see, oh yeah, I remember I planted that tree. There it is. It's helping my community. Look at it now. Look at the blue jays that are in it. Blue jays love oak trees. Or look at the different insects that are on it. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe how many acorns it's producing now. That's our long-term vision, is that this is going to be something that sustains our community and lasts as long as our school is here. So hopefully it works out with the Shade Tree Commission that they grant us permission with that. And we talked about that we presented at the festival in Morristown. We also do some walking in Morris Township. So if the Morristown Shade Tree Commission works out well, we would then move to the Morris Township Environmental Commission and see if they would also allow us to find locations with them that we would be able to plant these trees year after year. So it's not a one and done program. It's something that we're looking forward to continuing every year with our students. Yeah, so on the slide that had the pictures of our tool, there also was a picture in the middle of them in little, there it is, with little glass jars. That's the link I sent home with families, and we put it actually in our week at a glance, so the whole school community got it as well, is if they have acorns in their neighborhood, what they could do, or if they took home acorns from the playground, how they can grow them at home. Our students also did learn how you can cook with acorns and how they're actually edible by humans, which they did not know. So there's an incredible array of facts that the students can learn about acorns if you just take a little time and let them lead the way. And again, this was an easy, and Christine, stop me if I'm wrong, an easy unit for them to really jump into, because the students are every year constantly filling their pockets with acorns. So it was very meaningful learning for them.
I don't know if you mentioned about one of the things that was super fun for our students was a lot of the acorns had holes in them, and we were trying to figure out why they would have these very perfect little holes. And then some of them got left in a bag for a little bit. A student forgot to hand in, and they had caterpillar or worms coming out of them and different things like that. So there's a lot of student interest in what was happening with the acorn. Some of them felt like really hollow, some of them didn't. So they really had a great time just exploring them before we even did any learning.
Yeah, and exploring is a key piece to, I mean, again, that's where our school, being as flexible with our learning as we are, we followed their leads with what they wanted to learn with the acorns. So things like they wanted to collect a lot with caps on them. And I see a question here about any suggestions on how, successful planting. So the acorns with caps supposedly do not grow as well as the ones without caps. So you want to have capless acorns for this project. And what we found also was the ones with caps float, float. And you want the acorns that sink to be the ones that you plant. So our floating acorns had all caps on them, and we talked about how they're not viable for planting. Also, acorns come in a wide variety of colors, sizes, shapes. So that was a whole discussion. We also learned that acorns, I found some beautiful ones with the kids that were yellow. They were gorgeous, but we kept them inside for a day, and by the next morning they were totally brown. So that's something that we still are learning about, and why did they change? We haven't quite figured out why yet, but there's all different things to find out about acorns. So our suggestions are that they're capless. You do have to make sure that they sink, not float, because if they float, that means something ate the yummy inside, and that's like a piece of the plant that you need to grow. They do like I think they don't need direct sun. They can do a slightly shade area, and they do like, I think it's a loamy soil. In the first slide, there's the link that can tell you about the exact type of soil that they like. We are planting them in like our really nutrient rich garden beds because we compost here at school and we use all organic methods. So we're confident that if they're going to grow in something, they're going to be able to grow in this garden bed because it's basically like a bunch of vitamins for plants, you know, nature's vitamins through compost in our garden beds. And we take really good care of weeding it, watering it, and checking it throughout the winter. Also, we didn't shelter them from the snow. We're letting it go totally natural right now, but if they don't make it, the next piece that we would do is we thought about taking old glass windows to make like a little cold frame to see if that helps a little. So that would be our next step. We would help the students unveil that and figure out maybe they froze and maybe it wasn't viable, but that would be something that Christine and I would work on with the students next year as we work through how many actually grew. And that again is going to launch some of her math lessons with the next group of third graders, how many were planted versus how many grew. And that goes on to fractions and all that good work that they do in third grade math.
Lois asked if we're doing anything to protect the saplings from deer.
We right now don't need to do anything on our campus for the saplings. We have extremely high fences around the building. The only places we have low fencing is in an area of blacktop, and for some reason the deer do not like to walk on this part of the blacktop. But when we do plant them outward, we've actually collected from other places the sleeves that you put around a sapling, the plastic, they're like mesh that you can put around them. But the problem is with that is you got to make sure you go back and take them off. But we would work with the Shade Tree Commission on what they would want. They have great practices in each town and township are different on what practices they do with their trees. So we would definitely make sure we work with them to see what they have found successful and what they would allow us to put around the trees. But yes, we of course would want to make sure that they're at a point where they'd be saved from the deer. Any other questions?
Question from my end, Jen and Christine. I think this is such a wonderful presentation, and
I do see Christine's class actually. Yes, there's a bunch of questions.
I hope you can you hear me?
Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So yeah, one question from my end. This is such a interesting lesson plan that has a life on its own, and it keeps evolving, and it just keeps building on, you know, each other's, the previous stages, and it cuts across different grades. I think it's such a wonderful idea to use this project and to know more about your own nature environment here. But have there been any challenges in terms of thinking about this project, or maybe in the implementation at any stage?
Sure. So there have been challenges. One challenge, if you're going to do that and you're going to do this with your students, don't keep the acorns inside for an extended period of time. Try to use them because if you collect a bunch of them and you bring them inside and it's nice and warm, as Christine noted before, some of them have like little weevils in them that are eating the inside. And once they eat the inside, they start coming outside. So unfortunately, one of our teachers was out for over a week and a half. And when they came back, they were like, oh, there's bugs all over my floor. And she couldn't figure out why. And I was digging around. I was like, oh, it's your acorns. So they made it out of the acorns and were crawling around on the floor. Which is natural, and that was a lesson in itself, but unfortunately then all of those acorns weren't viable for the lesson, so don't let that happen to you. On the flip side, I kept acorns outside from the outreach that we did in Festival on the Green. I kept a bunch in a brown bag because I didn't want anything in my house, kept them in a brown bag in a bucket on my porch. I was like, oh, these are great. I'm going to make sure that we do some plantings like this in the classroom. since we had some outside, I wanted to grow some inside, some outside. So I left them outside for a week, and the brown bag was there in the whole time. And on the day of school, when I was going to bring them in, I'm like, oh, Christine, we're going to do some inside. Let's try this. I pick up the bucket, and it's extremely, they chewed a hole in the bottom of the bag. The entire bag was still puffy on the top. They had eaten every single acorn in there. So when I pulled it, the bag was all chewed out, and all the acorn, it was just shells of acorn left. So we did not successfully house the stash of acorns that we had planned to plant inside because the chipmunks outsmarted me. So those are two hurdles we have had at this time. Sure.
Another thing that's a little bit challenging is how long it takes for them to sprout and to grow. So when we do our gardens outside with the vegetables, the students are used to going out in a couple of weeks and seeing little sprouts. And so it's kind of hard for them to realize it's going to take a very long time for the seedlings to grow. So that is something to just be aware of, and like have the discussion of how long it takes for them to really start to be able to see anything growing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Christine and Jen. I think you already addressed the question about deer, but there's this question from Amy on just, I think, the biology of acorns and oak trees. So I don't know if you recommend any book which can get into like the details of the oak tree and know more about the tree itself.
We didn't have an oak book per se. We, like I showed, we did a lot of this with a universal design model using digital tools, because at the state that we're in, we do still have some students learning virtually. So we made sure that we were using tools that anyone could access from home or at school. I'm sure there are plenty out there depending on what grade you're looking for, but we don't have one in particular information book just on oak trees that we were utilizing in the classroom. But our digital pieces are there in the slideshow. The links are all there that you can utilize. The read aloud books also, they're also there. We didn't have links to them, but you can see the title and author that are there.
There'll be probably more questions coming in, but in the meantime, again, one of my questions is how do you measure like the progress of your program? Do you have any milestones? Do you recommend anything for the teachers who are thinking of this, but they don't have the ecosystem around them? Like you have a composting bed, you have a garden of your own. So how can people generally start with some baseline measures that they can develop as they go along?
Sure. So you can do this inside and your plants will start growing sooner. So using this method, and if you look at the link that I sent home with parents, you can actually start the oak trees kind of like if you did the potato thing where you put a potato in water and they start growing. Acorns will do a similar thing. They sprout a little earlier. You can measure them just like you do. Actually, they're a faster growing tree when they start, which is pretty interesting, but compared to, say, a pea plant, they're not as fast as a pea plant. So you can just do your typical measuring in the classroom with a ruler and things like that. For us, measuring success for this program, and Christine, you can jump in at any time, we're actually hitting all of our state standards through this program. So success for us is the students learning the standards for ELA, for math, science, and social studies is the ultimate success academically that we're looking for the students. So yes, we have different essays that they're writing. We have different tests that they're taking. They have different rubrics that we're using with them to see the growth that they're making. They have their journal entries. You can see the slide that sixth grader was putting together. So there's different pieces that we're using to see success on our end academically. The huge, big pictures, like I was talking about, success would be us having trees planted in the community, trees that are there 5 years from now, trees are there 10 years from now. Again, the ultimate goal is our kindergartners to plant some and then take that same walking trip in 8th grade, whether it be they're walking over to Granby Park or they're walking over to Growick Green or they're walking over to the post office. Then they see their tree in 8th grade, how much it has changed. That's the level of success we're looking for. And also we're all about building community with our school, which any school can have. Building those bridges with the students and their local governments, them knowing that they can make a difference, them being advocates for things that they believe in, is what we're really looking for. So it's not just one area of success, it's a tiered layer of success that we're looking for. And it's not necessarily, I mean, they'll get grades on their, report cards from the activities that they're doing, but success is really in the knowledge base that we're letting our students out of Unity with. When they leave us in 8th grade, this should be a legacy project. This should stick with them, and that they might be able to bring this forth into whatever schools they go to and in their life in general. That's our ultimate goal. Christine, what do you think?
Yeah, I would just say that it's that they understand that they can do these things themselves, these little changes that they can do. The students, then we're going around planting acorns everywhere, things like that, so that they understand that they are able to make that big difference just by doing some of the smaller activities.
I do see another question about separating oak species. We have not gotten there yet. That is the next layer that we're doing, because some students actually brought the oak tree. We have a massive oak tree on the playground. So that is, we have many, but that's the one that we got most of them from. So most of our acorns were similar size, similar color, but friends started bringing them from home. And that's when we started seeing all round ones and the long yellow ones. And so yes, the next layer would be to delve into this different types of oak trees there are, and what's the difference, and which ones are, when we get there a couple years in, we will be planting different species of oak in our garden bed, and who sprouts first. I mean, it's endless of the different types of activities we can do when we start delving deep into that. This literally could be the science unit for any grade for the entire year, because there's so much that you can do just with it in hypothesizing and testing. I mean, in our middle school, we do a lot of work with different leaves and looking at plant cells. I mean, the oak tree itself, right now we use like the Elodia plant, but we can use the oak tree to do the exact same lessons that we're doing in 6th grade. We haven't gotten there yet. This is just our first baby step, but yes, this could be in every grade, doing different investigations with the oak.
And Jen and Christine, do you get the school buy-in and the teachers buy-in, because there's this project that you are doing, but do you also have to have separate meetings with other teachers to tell them where you are, and all the ideas that you have with other teachers as well? That's one question. And then how, I think it's fascinating that you bring in this idea of bringing in the environmental commission and getting like this whole community together with schools and the community leaders. So anything on that front, just to give us some ideas on what other schools can do.
So just as our practice, we always meet with all the different grade level teachers in the lower school, like once a week, to discuss what we're doing. So that's definitely a great opportunity for us to collaborate and make sure that we are incorporating the same kinds of lessons and the curriculum, like cross curriculum, the different activities as well.
And my unique position at our school is not only am I the supervisor of curriculum, right? So I can see the big picture of where all the different units are across our entire school. I'm also the sustainability coordinator. So I go in, students are used to seeing me in their classrooms anyway for different activities or pitching ideas with them or hearing their ideas. We also do something called a personal learning plan with each child. So I'm very involved with that with each child, and we always use the education for sustainability standards across the board in our school. It's part of our mission. So every teacher has a layer of sustainability built into every single lesson that they do. That's part of the practice, and our teachers are trained in that here at our school. So this is nothing outside of the ordinary. It actually is pretty unifying, because they can, like Christine was saying, the lower school has team meetings every week. The middle school has team meetings every week. They can talk about where they are in the project and pitch new ideas to each other and do it in real time. Our middle school is very, very small, so that there's like 1 or 2 of each teacher. So the students go from the math teacher to the ELA teacher to the social studies teacher. So it's like a team in a larger school. When I taught in larger schools, they would have different middle school teams or high school teams. Those teachers taught together. So our team talks about what they're doing, and they could do a reading in English class that focuses on, the journey, something with an oak tree. And they could then in social studies talk about the origin of the oak tree. How did it, where did it come from? Are there are oak trees invasive in other countries? Like all those kind of discussions can be had. We are very flexible in allowing our teachers, again, as long as you're hitting the state standards, to take this project in any direction that they want to.
Thank you. I think I'll hand over to Erin. I don't see questions coming up.
Okay. Yeah, if we don't have any more questions, and I'm sure you guys can reach out to Jen and Christine if you do come up with something after the session ends. But we'll go ahead and finish up. So thank you all for coming out this afternoon. Thank you also to our presenters, Jen and Christine. We appreciate your time today and express our gratitude for the wonderful work you're doing. It's really awesome project, it looks like. Just a few reminders before we close out. We'll be putting an evaluation link in the chat. Please, before the end of the conference, put down all your comments and questions and any of that in there. Again, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is also in the chat. If you see any presentations that you didn't get to attend live, they'll be up on the YouTube pretty soon. And also thanks to our conference sponsors, PSE&G, New Jersey Natural Gas, and our anonymous donor, and to BASF and the Grounds for Sculpture for supporting our field experiences. Thank you, everybody, and hopefully we will see you again later. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.